If you're on LinkedIn, you've probably seen Alana Sparrow. She's known for her really unique content. Alana is a brand strategist who helps high-performing leaders turn their expertise into authority. She's prolific on LinkedIn, where she shares posts on how to stand out in competitive markets and build a reputation that cannot be copied. In this episode, I sit down with Alana and I pick her brain about what she really thinks about the legal industry, what it takes for lawyers to stand out on LinkedIn. She also breaks down how to move beyond the noise, how to build a brand that feels both powerful and approachable, and why authority today is about connection as much as it's about expertise. If you've ever wondered how to position yourself so you're not just another lawyer online, but the lawyer people remember, this conversation is for you. So, Alana, I've been wanting to talk with you for so long because to me, your LinkedIn posts stand out so much. I don't think there's anyone like you in LinkedIn, you know, in terms of the graphics that you use, the way that you write your messaging, the way that you format your posts and write your posts. They're so clever. So I'm very excited to pick your brains about how you do it.
I love that. Let's pick away.
I'd like to do something a little bit different, which I've never actually done on the podcast before, but I thought you'd be a great candidate for this.
I like the sound of this already.
I'd like us to get into a bit of a discussion about basically what you've been saying. You know, people within the legal industry have been telling me that they love this particular brand that I'm going to mention. They love the messaging and they really feel like when they read their posts on LinkedIn that they actually feel something from it and they want to be involved with this brand. They want to be part of their community. So I thought it'd be interesting to maybe like analyze it a little bit and discuss what we think and particularly what you think, because you're the expert here, on why they have achieved this. So I'm not associated with this company, but it's a legal tech provider, software provider to law firms called Legora, one of the biggest in the industry. And people seem to like them. Law firms seem to really trust them, which is a really big hurdle. And I was wondering what your thoughts are on this brand.
Yes, I want to pull up their last post. They're not posting that often. They posted 2 months ago. I want to just see what that post. I think one of the things that I noticed, for one, on their, it's so much about how things are getting done and different. Like that is the thing that just bubbles up right up to the top, is their messaging is leading with, we're changing how things get done. So when you're talking about a sector that is tired, right? I'm not even in law, and I know it feels, a lot of people feel burnt out, tired. I have a lot of law friends, and I see it in them. I see it in their bodies. I see how much they've aged comparative to their friends that are kind of like the exact same age. And just because it's just such a taxing and stressful industry. And so when you're leading with messaging that says we are going to do this differently inside of a sector that has grown tired of how things get done, but yet don't necessarily know how to change and turn a giant mammoth of a ship all on their own, it can be very challenging. And it's also interesting because they're in support of the industry. It's not like they're a law firm coming in and saying, we're changing. That's great. You can do that all day long. Doesn't necessarily mean that you will lead an entire industry to shift. Instead, this is an adjacent, supportive, because they're in software, servicing this sector, which is really interesting because they're in this really unique position to have an absolutely incredible impact on an entire market and industry. And that blows my mind.
It's interesting what you say, you know, about this point about them focusing on, okay, we're going to actually make your life easier by doing X, Y, and Z. And they focus on that supportive aspect as opposed to, oh, we have these features, you know, that do this, this, and this. It's actually getting to the root of the issue here, which is psychological, right? I've wasted hours drafting contracts in my business. I've used clunky templates, even written from scratch, looked into paying lawyers. I've even tried ChatGPT, but it just didn't hit the mark. I knew there had to be a better way. And then I found this, Air Counsel, an AI contract drafter built by lawyers for lawyers. I spoke to the team at Air Counsel and they use it for their own legal work, and they're improving it every single day based on real life feedback. It actually does the heavy lifting for you. It researches your jurisdiction's laws and nuances and picks up local drafting quirks and even matches your tone and style. It then builds a ready-to-edit Word document with hyperlinks, numbering and a table of contents. It's so quick. I was so impressed when I used it. What I love about it is you can ask it to draft any contract you like, and it will even give you suggestions for appropriate terms or clauses that you'd never even think of. If you're still spending hours drafting contracts the old way, you don't have to anymore. This changed everything for me. If you're a lawyer, business owner, service provider, it might just do the same for you. And Air Counsel have been kind enough to sponsor this episode, and I'm so excited to spread the word. It's the most sophisticated contract drafting software I've used. To get your free 7-day trial, just go to the description of this episode. Give it a go, and don't forget to let me know how it changes your workflow.
Well, and that speaks to having an understanding of what your customer actually wants and needs, and not making an assumption about what lawyers need to make their careers easier, better, more sustainable, or what have you. It's very likely that they actually did the research and did the work right and built the tools and the offering based on what the market needed and wanted, because we can't assume what they need and want. That is a very common mistake I see a lot of businesses making, and especially I see it a lot with solopreneurs, is making an assumption about what their customer needs. Saying, well, they need this because this is what I do and this is what I want to do. And that's a mistake. And building something that the market hasn't asked for, hasn't said that they need or that they want, is very, very risky. It's very risky. Now, the opposite of that is Apple. Apple was known and is still known for giving us things we didn't even know we needed, but that is not born in a vacuum. So we shouldn't get confused about how that type of innovation comes to be. It also comes to be by deeply understanding the customer. It's like, whoa, I didn't even know I needed that. That's absolutely brilliant. And they deliver it and introduce it to us in a way that gets us to say, holy heck. But that's where a lot of businesses really get it wrong, because they don't understand the psychology of it, and they are doing it, and it's coming from a place that is misguided.
You're right. You've kind of hit the nail on the head there. You know, really, really tapping into what your market actually wants, as opposed to just making assumptions, which you're right. I think a lot of people do. And I've even done it myself, you know, when starting out, like, oh, people need this. And then you realize, actually, you can't just assume that they will need something. You've really got to get in there and do the dirty work and like actually get this, do the research, speak to the people, get on the ground and do this.
Yeah, absolutely. And, you know, something else I think that this brand is doing is like one of the posts here that got a good bit of traction last week is ready to rethink how legal work gets done. Join us at the in-house forum. That one, okay, that's kind of you know, it's just an announcement. This one here, it's a program that they're sponsoring. So the brand is existing in a lot of different ways where they're supporting other lawyers in different ways. So they're living out the brand ethos. And so when you have that ethos that you put out, you've articulated it, you can't, that's it. I'm going to back up for just a minute. As a branding agency, I can create any brand in the world. I can make it feel like absolutely anything. And on paper and in its visual identity could be the most amazing thing in the world. But if it's not delivered, if the promises are not delivered, if it's not showing up in every facet of the business, it won't work. You'll lose trust. It won't align. And that is something that they are, at least in this moment, doing quite well. And in their word choices, and it's really interesting. Even their visual identity branding, it feels a little bit like an agency, which feels polished but yet a little bit creative. So it's striking this really nice balance between being a little left of center, but not so far left that a conservative market like law will feel uncomfortable inside of it. And that's a really delicate balance inside of there, because when it comes to law, you've got people going into law that have particular mindsets and the way that they view the world, and like even just how they're operating inside of the work that they do. They need to feel that. We all need to feel trust, but that's a sector that needs it probably more than any other, aside from banking. Banking's also another one, banking finance. You'll see that as well. And they're doing a really good job of that.
How do you think a brand like this one can build trust through their branding and messaging for a client base like law firms?
Well, they're doing it. They're doing it through story. They're also sharing a lot of behind the scenes, which is that's what people want to see. They want to see the factory floor, and I'm seeing them do that. They're doing that through interviews. They're doing it through a different variety of content. Even in the interviews, they're dressed normal. They're dressed like casual Friday. So they are just showing up as what feels like, if I were looking at the archetype, it's like the regular guy, right? It's just the regular Joe, but also with something that has this kind of polished nuance. And that's why when I was talking about the brand archetypes, why I like to work with threes, because you have that lead, but you're not going to show up that way every time, because you can't just be a regular Joe every time. At some point, I'm going to need the corporate guy to show up and show me that you understand this. And so that's where those things make a lot of sense. And they can build that trust through the human side of it, but then they're able to come in with that authority that we know your industry. We're born out of your industry. We completely get it. And they are checking a lot of boxes right now. A lot of the right boxes.
Yeah. How do they show that they know the industry, apart from doing these posts where they're like, I guess, partnered up with other law firms, or they're going to these events or organizing these things? How can they actually demonstrate that? Because I think where a lot of legal tech companies go wrong is that they just talk about it, but no one trusts words. They need it to be going deeper. So how do you actually create that through a brand?
You do that through actual case studies, actual social proof, showing your people out there, having your leadership out there talking through their own personal brands. And from here, I haven't gone that deep on this one. They are featuring a lot of different people inside from the company standpoint. They could be doing it, but I'm not sure. We could take a look. We could take a minute and take a look. But they could be doing it through their leadership's personal brands. They're definitely showing up in the content on the business page. But even beyond Legora, every company, if you truly want to resonate, you need to have your leadership. You need to have your leadership out there. For one, LinkedIn, especially if you're talking about a platform like LinkedIn, they push the individual profiles more than the business pages in that regard. You still want to have the business page, but if you were going to be making the investment, if you don't have the deep resources to hire a branding agency to do all of that, you need to leverage your people, leverage their personal brands, put their IP, the thing that they are bringing to the table and how they inform the company and what they represent inside of the company forward. That is what really builds trust. And, a lot of companies, they still have a lot of fear around that, because they feel that How are we going to control that message? How are we going to do that? But that's also where a lot of companies screw up, because they're so busy trying to polish and fine tune a message that the message is already dead and gone. And we've moved on by the time it got through 5 phases of legal and, public relations and the marketing team to give it an approval, and out the door, it's no longer relevant. And that goes for the personal brands. They can get caught into that the limbo as well. And that's where I see a lot of companies kind of screwing it up in that regard. So they may not be doing that. They may have a flatter process inside of that to where it's not taking quite so long.
I think they are actually, like, I do know, like, the individuals, the main people within the company are actually elevating their own personal brands. So that is definitely a key factor, I think, as you say. And I've spoken to a lot of companies, mainly in law, because I'm in law, who just don't want to do this. They don't want to put their founders out there. They don't want to put their team out there. They just feel shy and they don't know what to say and they just don't want to do it. But how important do you think it is? I think it's absolutely vital. But from your perspective, how important do you think it is for the success of a company?
In this moment, it's critical. And where we are right now, especially with the volatility of the market and where we are heading, it's absolutely critical. And you don't have to do it. Just like you didn't have to have a website 20 years ago. And eventually you had to have it, right? You couldn't survive without it. Social media presence, it falls in the same kind of category. You don't have to have one, but it's going to come at a cost. And if you're really struggling with it and you don't know what to say, you don't know how to get comfortable with it, there's help for that. It's called brand strategists. That's what they're there to do. They're there to help guide you through that, of what you should be saying based on what is that vision, what is that mission, what is that. And a lot of people struggle with this. I can tell you right now, the reason why they're not showing up is they don't know what to say, is they haven't clarified those things, or they're not all on the same page of what is the vision, mission, why we're doing what we're doing, where we're going. And it becomes very difficult to know what to say when you're at odds internally. And I see that a lot happening. So that will filter through and on down to personal brands as well. And personal brands oftentimes don't really know where they fit inside of the larger brand identity. And, businesses will want personal brands to be all about the business. That's also a mistake. It's a missed opportunity, because your business brand, while you've branded it, you've created it into like a person, right? It's still made up of a bunch of individuals that are informing that identity and that vision and mission and what they're individually bringing to the table. So if you don't allow that to come through, it's just a completely missed opportunity. And that's where the trust is built. That's why when XYZ head of sales leaves, and all the clients go with them, because those clients have relationships with individuals, not necessarily just a deep tie to a brand or to a business. Something that you can fear or you can understand and know how to support that to where you don't have to be afraid of that. And that comes down to how you run your business, the relationship you have with your employees, the employer brand, and how you show up, again, for your team, for your staff. If that's very eroded or completely fractured, it doesn't always work. So there's a lot of things that have to be in place, and in place well and very stable in order for it to work.
Such an interesting point, actually, that one. And I've had a lot of people say to me, well, firm owners say to me, if we encourage employees to build their own personal brands, that just spreads risk, because firstly, how do you regulate what they're saying? And if they say something that, I don't know, threatens the reputation of the firm, then this is a big risk factor. And then another thing is, number two is, okay, what you've just mentioned, what if that person leaves the company, then what do we do in that scenario? But the thing is, I think it's always going to be a situation where somebody is probably going to leave the company, but you must act in a way that still promotes the personal brands of everyone in the company as much as you can, I think. How do you avoid these two risks from happening? So, I guess number one, regulating the use of LinkedIn for employees, and number two, what do you do about if people leave?
Now we're talking about really an operational type of thing, right? So in terms of that, yeah. So for one, if you are afraid of what your employees will do out on social media to hurt your firm, if you've got that many rogue cowboys on your team, you've got a vetting problem, right? So if you trust your employees, you should be able to provide them with the training on social media, best practices, that sort of thing. So there's ways to support that effort. But if you're in a situation where you don't have good hiring practices, or you've got a situation where you've got disgruntled employees because your company is being run in a not a less than desirable way, then you might not be set up to embrace something like this. So getting a temperature and kind of the lay of the land of where the company is as a whole in terms of its culture and where people sit inside of that is very important. I would not just say, oh, just willy-nilly, go do this. No, and obviously the larger you are, then the more challenging that can be. But also coming from that space of trust that they're working for you inside. And so what's the point of the social media? They're out there on the street doing the same thing. 20 years ago, before we had social media, everybody had their own Rolodex. They had their own phone. They had their own way of taking business with them had they wanted to. So why can it not be a win-win for both? And allowing people, because there's not a single company out there that's providing golden parachutes for any employees. So to say that they can't build their personal brands, they can't build their own IP out there, have their own thoughts within their own career, their own market, I think is egregious from my purview, and really a missed opportunity for companies. And there's plenty of companies that get this right, but most of them are still coming from a space of, we want total control over what our employees do. And that really has to be something that softens, that changes and shifts. And depending on the organization, that may never happen. It could happen with a restructuring. It could happen with some external help coming in to help them break that down. But it usually starts below, because I don't necessarily think that it's leadership's responsibility to just get on board with this idea. I think employees also have a responsibility to advocate for themselves for this. Get yourself educated on that, to know how to advocate why this is beneficial, not just for you, but for how you do your job. That is our responsibility individually to do that. And so I think it's both sides coming together. So there's no black or white answer on that. I wish it was more clean, but it's not.
You are right. It's all about culture. And if culture is strong and good, then you should have the trust, and employees should feel like they want to talk about what they're doing and feel comfortable to do so, and like they're not going to be punished by their company if they say something, I don't know, something personal, or that they can be themselves, their authentic selves. And it's like you say, it's important for every member in the team to feel like they can do that, because I also feel that building your own personal brand, whether you're working for a company or you have your own business, gives you that freedom and flexibility to feel like you can do anything. And if that's choosing the company that you're working for, then that's even more beneficial for the company, because then they feel like this person wants to be here, they want to work for us, and they're going to be happier because they have that freedom and choice, because they could actually go anywhere.
Absolutely. And that, when you choose a place to work, I think people have gotten a little bit better about this, and especially after, 2020, that whole time period when we had like really the mass resignation, right? We lost more people out of the workforce than ever in history, and they have not gone back. Some have, but they have not gone back. And they have not gone back because they one, they realized that their values and what was truly important to them wasn't in alignment with what was happening in their particular workplace. Because they didn't go back, it's obvious that it's this chronic issue across the board. It's not like just a handful of companies had big issues. It's really across the board. And some people are really they're doubling down on it. They're not going to do it. They're saying, come hell or high water, I will not go back and work for anyone else. But when they are choosing to do that, they're aligning on values the same way that when we make purchase choices, the same way when we hire clients, it's all very related. We make those choices most ideally when we are in alignment on those things. When we are working for a place and an employer that aligns with my values, the things that are important to me, and they're going to support that. They're going to have respect for me. They're going to have trust in me. They're going to give me the tools that I need to show up in a way that is expected. And I've seen the opposite happen. I don't know if it's the opposite, but you've got companies that won't do social media at all because they can't get past their fear of it. Then you've got companies who say, no, we're going to do it and you have to do it, but then give them no tools or support to be able to know how to do it or how to get more comfortable with it or how it makes sense or is a benefit to them. To me, that's actually even more dangerous because they were willing to do it, but they did it. They went in just, half baked with it. And so now they feel like it doesn't work. So you've got employees who feel like, okay, well, that was a disaster. I really don't want to do that, nor should I have to do it. That's not good either. That's not a good direction either. Ideally, everybody understands the benefit and it's optional and they can see how it benefits them as well inside of their job and inside of their career. And that they get to take that with them when they go. And that's okay. And wouldn't that just be a beautiful thing?
Yeah, absolutely. I guess it's just this educational factor and, letting everyone have a choice and also know, as you say, the best ways to post and how to handle their own profiles, I guess.
And if it comes to building your whole business strategy around the social profile of one, two, or three people, that might be a problem. That's not really a business strategy, right? You have to think about that. So when you have companies that if they are looking to sell, go public, but you've built the entire business on a single founder, face forward, and then that founder gets pushed out. We see that a lot too. So that's why there's business strategy involved, that you really need to think about how these things are done. And that's where working with a good brand strategist and agency that understands these things, that are really going to be looking at it from all sides for the health of the business as well as the brand and the individuals that make up that brand.
I just want to say thanks so much for coming and speaking about all these topics, and it's been so insightful hearing your views, especially from, I would say, like an outsider of the legal industry, and hearing your expert views on this is super, super interesting. So thank you for that, and please let people know where they can find you.
Oh, thank you. I really appreciate talking about this. I could talk about branding all day long, and I could talk about it inside of any sector, and it really excites me to see it coming to life in a sector like law, because I do think that it has the potential to make the industry better, make the sector better, period. And as far as like how to reach me, you can follow me on LinkedIn. You can just type my name in there. I don't think there's more than one of us in there, maybe one more. And you can follow me on Instagram too. I'm on both platforms.
Yeah, you've got a great Instagram, and also I would actually recommend people to sign up to your newsletter because it is brilliant and it always attracts my attention in the inbox. Your newsletters stand out a lot, so they're really, really
Oh,
great. Thank you for listening to this episode of More Than a Lawyer. If you're a legal tech founder still trying to grow your brand, the reality is this: Someone with half your expertise is about to outposition you. And when they do, you don't just lose reach, you lose deals, investors, opportunities, and more. I'm opening exclusive free access to a blueprint I've never shared publicly. If you want to become law firm's go-to legal tech solution, you'll need to become the leading authority. I explain exactly how in my blueprint. Go to the description of this episode to get it sent straight to your inbox now.